In this explanation, we are going to understand the vital role played by the kidneys in the human body and explore how they help regulate the levels of waste products, dissolved ions, and water within the bloodstream to keep everything in balance and functioning properly. We will also look at the important role played by a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, or ADH, in fine-tuning the body's water levels. The primary and most important job of the kidneys is to act as filters for the blood, removing all the unwanted or excess waste materials from our body. One of the key waste products that you should be aware of is called urea, and it is produced by the liver through a process known as deamination. During deamination, any excess amino acids that the body no longer needs are broken down and converted into fats and carbohydrates for storage, and the leftover nitrogen forms urea, which is toxic and needs to be removed. In addition to removing urea, the kidneys are also responsible for regulating the levels of important substances such as ions, including sodium ions and potassium ions, and water, which the body needs to maintain at just the right levels to stay healthy. These ions come from the food and drinks that we consume as part of our diet and are essential for a range of important functions, including nerve transmission and muscle contraction. However, if their levels become too high or too low, it can start to damage cells and disrupt the body's internal balance, which is why regulation is so crucial. We do lose some ions naturally through processes such as sweating, which is why sweat often tastes salty, but the main mechanism for keeping ion levels stable is through the action of the kidneys. When it comes to regulating water levels in the body, things get slightly more complex. We gain water through the foods we eat and the liquids we drink, and we lose water not just when we sweat or urinate, but also through the air we exhale and from the surface of our skin. However, the largest and most controlled loss of water comes through the kidneys in the form of urine. The reason why water regulation is so critical is that the balance of water inside and outside of our cells determines whether cells stay the right size or get damaged. This happens through a process known as osmosis, where water moves across cell membranes to try and balance concentrations. If there is too much water in the body, water will enter cells and may cause them to swell up and even burst. If there is too little water in the body, water will leave the cells, causing them to shrink and become dehydrated. So, maintaining just the right amount of water in the body is essential for keeping our cells healthy and functional. Now let us take a look at how the kidneys actually perform their work. Inside each of the two kidneys, there are roughly 1 million microscopic filtering units called nephrons. Although we will not go into every detail, you should know that each nephron includes a structure called a tubule. As blood flows through the kidneys, these tubules filter out almost all small substances from the blood. This includes water, glucose, amino acids, and urea. Large components such as proteins and blood cells are too big to pass through and remain in the bloodstream. This process is called filtration. After filtration, the kidneys carry out a second process called selective reabsorption. As the filtered mixture passes through the kidney tubules, the body reabsorbs only the substances it needs. For instance, glucose is extremely important, so 100% of it is reabsorbed. The body also reabsorbs some water depending on how much is needed, but it does not reabsorb any of the urea, which continues on to become part of the urine. This process of reabsorbing only the useful parts and discarding the rest is why it is called selective reabsorption. You can think of it like cleaning out your entire room by throwing everything outside first and then carefully choosing only the items you still want or need to bring back inside. The items you discard become the waste, and in this case, that waste is urine. Now, let us look at how the body keeps water levels precisely in balance through hormonal control. Inside the brain is a structure called the hypothalamus. This part of the brain constantly monitors the water concentration in the bloodstream. If it detects that the water level is too low, such as in cases of dehydration, it sends a signal to another gland located just beneath the brain called the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland responds by releasing a hormone known as ADH, which stands for antidiuretic hormone. ADH enters the bloodstream and travels to the kidneys, where it instructs the kidney tubules to reabsorb more water back into the bloodstream. This results in an increase in the amount of water retained in the blood and a decrease in the amount of urine produced, meaning less water is lost from the body. So essentially, when the body has too little water, more ADH is released, causing the kidneys to reabsorb more water, and therefore we urinate less. However, if the body has too much water, perhaps because we drank a lot or we are overhydrated, the hypothalamus reduces the signal it sends to the pituitary gland. As a result, the pituitary gland releases less ADH. With less ADH in the bloodstream, the kidney tubules reabsorb less water. This means that more water stays in the tubules and eventually leaves the body as urine. This allows the body to get rid of the excess water and restore balance. This entire process of adjusting water levels in response to internal conditions is a great example of a negative feedback loop. Negative feedback is a system where any deviation from the desired level is automatically corrected. If water levels become too high, the system brings them back down. If water levels become too low, it brings them back up. This dynamic balance ensures that water concentration in the blood remains steady and within a healthy range at all times, which is critical for proper cell function and overall health. And that concludes everything you need to understand about how the kidneys function, how they filter blood, regulate waste products and useful substances, manage water balance, and how all of this is controlled by hormones like ADH through a process of negative feedback.